Alan brought up Notre Dame, right? The Notre Dame game, 23-13 over Texas A&M in College Station. One of the biggest games of the day. You could argue it was the biggest. It was probably marginally more entertaining than Clemson, Georgia, which would have been the other really big one that people were talking about. Florida, Miami also in there. That would have been, that was the best game. At least there was some offense to really watch in that game. This was a slugfest. This was a rock fight. Notre Dame, Texas A&M. And even though it was a totally ugly game, nobody generated really any offense until the third quarter when finally Notre Dame got into the end zone. It's a huge win. It's a huge win for the Fighting Irish. Nobody will remember or care how ugly that was. Notre Dame now has firmly entrenched itself into the college football playoff at large discussion, which goes back to the top of the show, what I was talking about there. Massive opportunity cost if you're the Big 12 and West Virginia goes out and gets thumped the way that they did by Penn State. Now you've got Notre Dame entering the discussion where they will probably be a firm player here in getting an at-large spot into the college football playoff the rest of the year. And it's not just because everyone's going to be so awed by this win over Texas A&M, right? That is not at all what I'm saying. Texas A&M is probably, speaking of teams that smelled pretty 7-5-y, that's the vibe that I got from that. I think Texas A&M is pretty average, certainly by SEC standards, pretty average. It's not that's going to carry Notre Dame. It is what I'm about to show you that is going to carry Notre Dame the rest of the year and make it more difficult for the Big 12 or the ACC, who have had their struggles in big moments. It's going to make it more difficult for them to get a second team into the college football playoff. My apologies for the ad there. This is it. Here is the rest of Notre Dame's schedule, my friends. Northern Illinois, at Purdue. Good old Power 2 Purdue. Miami, Ohio. Louisville. Now, Louisville was salty last year. Maybe the Cardinals can be a bit of a test, but that's at home. Stanford at home. At Georgia Tech. We did see Georgia Tech beat Florida State, so fair enough. Maybe. Navy, Florida State. It's in South Bend, Virginia, Army, at USC. I don't know what exactly is happening in the USC game right now. Maybe that would change some people's opinions right now, being swayed early on. But that schedule is not murderer's row, is the point here on Notre Dame. And you got to keep in mind that it's not just, oh, look at these games, like they're going to be favored in every single game the rest of the way. But it's also, they could drop one or two of those and still very much be in the discussion. They got this win. They got over the hump, one of their more difficult games of the year to start out the year in front of, 100,000 fans in College Station. We make fun of them. They are very annoying sometimes on social media, at least, but they show out, and that's a really tough place to play. And it was number one toughest places to play on the video game for a reason. Notre Dame just cleared a huge hurdle. And you know what Notre Dame's got working for it? They've got big-time brand equity, great brand value that's going to carry the day in a lot of discussions, I'm sure, in those rooms. The College Football Playoff Selection Committee. And now if you're trying to compare a Big 12 that lost its one chance to go beat one of the top contenders in the Big 10, it's not likely to hold up very well if Notre Dame is going to stay on this track that it appears that they are going to be headed on now after beating Texas A&M. That is a bummer. Same for the ACC. If we're talking about Virginia Tech at the end of the year, if they do turn it around, you're talking about a Virginia Tech team that's 9-1 late in the year versus 9-1 Notre Dame. Well, Virginia Tech lost to Vandy, disqualified. It's going to be a disqualifier in a lot of people's minds, especially when Notre Dame already has the brand advantage there. So toughest game left. If you're going through, I like Kelly Ford's ratings a lot. If you're going through Kelly Ford's ratings, Notre Dame's toughest game left is Florida State. That's their number 19 in the country there, and that game's at home. They will, as I mentioned, have the latitude to drop a game or two. So even if they were to lose that game, very much still in play that they could get one of those at-large spots. So I like some of the hilarity that ensues when Texas A&M loses in a big spot like that, and I always say it wrong. Is it Schadenfreude or Schadenfreude, whatever that German word is? I mean, like you're taking pleasure in somebody else's pain. I get it. There's a lot there with Texas A&M because they can be an obnoxious online fan base, but it would have been better for Big 12 and ACC fans had Notre Dame actually lost that game and Texas A&M won. I see a couple reactions to it here. BR James, how about Elko trashing CK7? That would be Colin Klein. I assume that means the shot that the cameras picked up of him saying, tell him to run the bleeping ball, I believe is what it was. He said it a couple of times. I will just put it this way from what I saw of the game. Colin Klein can't throw the football for Connor Wegman. Like, I'm sure there are things Colin Klein could have done better, but Wegman just didn't look like he had it. He doesn't look like that dude at quarterback for A&M. So that seems to be the bigger issue and the bigger problem for me, from my perspective, than Colin Klein as a play caller. But, who knows? Elko's not there to mess around, so I'm sure they will try to get whatever fixed and figured out. I don't expect this to be like the Jimbo Fisher era at Texas A&M. I do anticipate that it will be better than that. I respect Elko a lot, and I wish the best for Colin Klein. Like, I'm not a K-State fan here who is going to take pleasure in the pain of Colin Klein at all there. In fact, I mean, you can argue if you're wanting him to come back as a head coach someday, maybe you don't want him to be too terribly good at Texas A&M, but you need him to not completely flame out there, right? If that's the ultimate idea. I don't hold a grudge against Colin Klein for that. It was a career move that is understandable. But yes, I did see that. I also saw just a lot of Texas A&M Twitter very upset with the play calling, but everyone's flailing and mad at everybody when the offense looks that bad, especially in such a high profile spot. David, what's up, David? Oh, so David's going to enjoy this one. Speaking of pleasure in someone else's pain, David will enjoy it because, did Trev Alberts and Texas A&M lose? Yes, David, Nebraska fan, lost Trev Alberts to Texas A&M. Weird move there, and then they lost. They lose a big spot in week 1. So, yes, congratulations, David. Egg on the face of Trev Alberts in week 1. Well, Nebraska looks like they found a quarterback. I hate to admit it, and I hate to tell you folks, I think Nebraska is going to be in a pretty good spot because Dylan Raiola looks like the real deal. That guy can sling it. I think Nebraska fans are going to be really, really happy with that. For a true freshman to go out there and hit some of the throws he did. Watch out, Colorado. Watch out. Nebraska favored for a reason in that one coming up this weekend. And Jeff, thank you for weighing in. Let me go see if there's something in the comments here that I'm missing. I'm not seeing anything. All right, well, Jeff, I appreciate your contribution to the channel. Thank you, my friend. And anybody else who wants to join in, click the $ below the chat box in order to do that. If we want to go a little deeper in this Penn State West Virginia game, because I know I was talking more like big picture on this, I do want to say, like, I truly feel for West Virginia fans here because Friday was great. You did get that. You'll always have Friday. Pat McAfee show, the fan base really showing out. They deserved a better performance. I mean, Neil Brown basically said as much in the postgame press conference. Deserved a better performance in that big of a spot. Friday was fun, but when it came to the game, I always think about this, like the fun quotient for games. Was there a big moment? Even if it was a loss, was there a big moment? Was there something memorable, a cool experience? My example of this is always like when K-State was at the peak of its powers under Bill Snyder, winning 11 games, 6 of 7 years in the late 90s, early 2000s. They played a game against Oklahoma in 2000. College Game Day was there. K-State was number 2. They got down 38-17. Came all the way back to within 1 score. They had a block punt that got them to within 1 score in the fourth quarter, run back in for a touchdown. A lot of people will tell you, myself included, I was there. It was the loudest moment, I think, in Bill Snyder Family Stadium history. K-State lost the game, but there was at least a moment there that was really fun and a cool experience for everybody. Man, there was nothing for West Virginia fans in that game. Maybe the closest thing you're getting is probably the Drew Aller fumble in the first quarter, but guess what happened right after it? West Virginia threw it right back with a mistake with the snap hitting the motion man. So there was just no moment to really be like a cathartic, let it all out, scream, it's an awesome moment, great. There was none of that. And then you had like the worst case scenario, which is a weather delay being thrown in there too. So you don't get your moment. You get, I would say this was borderline crock potting. If again, I'm going to reference the solid verbal, kind of what it was. Like you're not just getting blitzed right out of the chute, right? This wasn't 2012 K-State, West Virginia, but this was like, it just simmers for a long time. You're never really getting anywhere. And by the end of it, like you are cooked all the way through, man. You're pretty damn well cooked. It's kind of what happened to West Virginia in this game, which is just not fun. It's like slowly having the life squeezed out of you. There was some controversy. Yes, there were some calls, I think, that did not go West Virginia's way. So you endure all of that, and you watch Drew Aller, who there's been all this talk about Aller and Garrett Green, and like I'm sitting here like kind of defending West Virginia and saying I don't think Drew Aller is that great of a quarterback, and Aller looked awesome. And completely cooked in the second quarter with 3 touchdown passes. That moment right before halftime was a huge piece of the game. And then you get a weather delay, which is just the most deflating thing ever. Kills the atmosphere because inevitably some people are going to leave. There's a 2+ hour lightning delay. Some people are not going to come back. So you get that element, the atmosphere sucked out. Instead of night game with no interruptions, you got 11 a.m. with a weather delay. Worst case scenario. And then by the time you come back, Penn State just gets back to scoring again. And it's just nothing there, man. Nothing there. That's a miserable day. So I really, truly do feel for West Virginia fans and all that. Drew Aller, I got to give him credit. And I've got to say that I feel a little bit silly because I knew better. I have been saying for years now, Andy Kotelnicki is a star, the Kansas offensive coordinator who really was co-pilot on that turnaround that Lance Leipold put together, who was amazing. I mean, I watched him in the Big 12. His offense there's so much pre-snap motion and eye candy and window dressing that it becomes really tough to stop. And he schemes guys open. I should have known. He goes to Penn State. He starts working with Drew Aller, who does have a lot of talent. Of course he was going to look great. Of course, because Kotelnicki is a star. If I were a Kansas fan, I would look around at that a little bit and be like, oh, okay, I'm not going to overreact, but I might plant a little seed in my head of like, oh, we may have really downgraded here at offensive coordinator. We'll see about Jeff Grimes. Again, I'm not taking anything from the Lindenwood game, but just Kotelnicki looks so good. The early returns there in a big test for he and his quarterback, who were much maligned last year. I mean, as for the controversy, one other note that I had on the West Virginia game here, like I know West Virginia fans, I thought that was a fumble. The other Penn State quarterback that was in there kind of fumbled it right as his shin was about to hit the ground. I did think that was a fumble. The touchdown right before half didn't get reviewed. It was probably offensive pass interference on the 55-yard pass that set that up. A lot of things that could have gone the other way. Now, I also thought West Virginia got away with one on a 4th down conversion that they got that held up a pass replay. But even if some of these calls went the other way, I didn't see anything in the game that indicated that was going to make any difference in the outcome. It was really Penn State really outclassed West Virginia, which is very, very disappointing. Season is far from over for the Mountaineers. Again, much like I did with the Tech fans, I will reiterate this for West Virginia. Season is far from over, but you got to get it put together quickly because there's a game against Albany, and then it's at Pitt, Kansas, at Oklahoma State, Iowa State, K-State, at Arizona. Gets real in a hurry. I guess it already got real, but it will continue to be very real. And if you don't start to figure things out, that could go downhill fast.